What are the best Pokemon games? Ranking such classics proved difficult given how many of them ended up being among the best games of their particular console generation. To be clear though, this is just the mainline entries, the games that introduce new generation to Pokemon to the mix, the sequels, the ultimate versions and remakes of those said games. No mainline spin-offs are included here unfortunately, so sorry Pokemon Smile fans. In the second part of this mini-series, we look at the top 10 best Pokemon games ever made for the main series. Number 10, Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, released on the 28th of November 2014 on the 3DS. User score 8.4 out of 10. Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire seem very similar to X and Y, as you might expect, but the story and the environments you encounter feel very fresh and unique. They're not an extensive upgrade from the 3DS counterparts, but any Pokefan who's played one of the series remakes in the past knows not to expect radical overhauls. These titles should be considered a complement to X and Y, even though they arguably surpass these games by pushing new ideas, such as the Soar ability. Number 9, Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, released on the 1st of October 2004 on the Game Boy Advanced. User score 8.5 out of 10. Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green were Game Boy Advance remakes of the classic games that started it all, Red and Blue. Did Pokemon really ever get better than this? That's up for debate of course, and vastly updated visuals and the ability to connect with various different Pokemon games to collect over 350 Pokemon and an enhanced user interface were just some of the upgrades offered in this 32-bit revamp. For players intimately familiar with the Kanto games, this was the first opportunity of many of course to come to indulge in some nostalgia and catch the original 151 all over again. Who could resist? Number 8, Pokemon Black and White, released on the 4th of March 2011 on the DS. User score 8.6 out of 10. Pokemon Black and White may not have the added nostalgia of Heart Gold and Soul Silver, but they're up for what is some of the best in the series. What they lack in links to the past they gain by recreating the sense of discovery felt when embarking on that first Pokemon journey. Black and White arguably suffer in reputation for being the only games in the series, so far, to have directly numbered sequels set in the same region. Despite being shoved to the back of the queue in some people's minds, these introductions to Gen 5 are still fantastic games and definitely worth a revisit. Number 7, Pokemon Legends Arceus, released on the 28th of January 2022 on the Nintendo Switch. User score 8.6 out of 10. Designated a mainline entry in the series by Game Freak himself, Pokemon Legends Arceus feels like the result of developers learning lessons for 25 years, refining the formula and finally taking the franchise in a new incredibly exciting direction. Technically it may stumble in places, but with an emphasis on extremely rewarding exploration, addictive catching mechanics, a fine roster of pokes, and a genuine sense of scale that's unlike anything in the Pokemon series. Pokemon Legends Arceus is up there with the greatest Pokemon games ever made in my book, and let's hope we get what is rumoured to be the next one, Pokemon Legends Celebi. Number 6, Pokemon Crystal, released on the 2nd of November 2001 on the Game Boy Color. User score 8.6 out of 10. Pokemon Crystal is a perfect swan song to what many fans consider to be the best generation of Pokemon games, and the series finale on the Game Boy Color. It featured a plethora of welcome new features over the base games, including the ability to play as a female character for the first time, plus more things to do, tweaked graphics and UI, a slight notch up in the challenge department. Crystal taught what Gold and Silver did so marvellously and made Johto worth exploring once more, and Kanto for the umpteenth time for that matter. It truly proves that nostalgia is far from the sole factor that makes these games so great to pick up. Make sure if you're enjoying our list to hit that like button and of course subscribe for future content. Number 5, Pokemon Gold and Silver, released on the 6th of April 2001 on the Game Boy Color. User score 8.7 out of 10. Pokemon Gold and Silver have always been a highlight in the Pokemon series, and even now, decades since they were originally released, they remain a truly brilliant experience. Perhaps it's indicative of the series' slow and steady iterative approach, but these games feel just as good as they did all those years ago. They're fantastic games that invoke warm, fuzzy memories for anyone who played them all those years ago. Updating the original with a gorgeous splash of colour on a Game Boy Color, adding 100 new pocket monsters and throwing in an entire Kanto region for good measure. Even people who adore the original series have been known to argue that Pokemon peaked at Gen 3. Number 4, Pokemon Black and White 2, released on the 12th of October 2012 on the DS. User score 8.7 out of 10. Those who brushed Pokemon Black and White 2 off as simply more of the same at the time were sorely mistaken. On a superficial level, the Pokemon games have not changed much, and for good reason. The foundation that was placed way back in Red and Blue was incredibly solid and engaging from the off. By adding more around it, tweaking things under the hood, the series has grown far beyond its humble, monochromatic origins, even if the pace of change is a little more glacial, some might like. Naming as these entries, the set as the first direct sequel in the Pokemon franchise, and the fact that they weren't being released on the new 3DS console arguably did these games a disservice and masked their greatness. Make no mistake though, these are two of the finest Pokemon games in the series. Number 3, Pokemon Emerald, released on the 21st of October 2005 for the Game Boy Advanced. User score 8.8 out of 10. Pokemon Emerald is the upgraded version of Ruby and Sapphire and, as you might expect, it was more of evolution than revolution. It included some new story elements in the home region, updates to locations where you could have certain Pokemon, allowed you to catch a greater pool of Pokemon than its predecessors, and of course added the Battle Frontier, a competition island you can visit after beating the Elite Four to earn badges, buy items and get new moves to teach your mons. Perhaps a little lacking in the wow factor for Pokemon fans who had been there from the beginning, Emerald was nonetheless a solid entry in Pokemon canon. Number 2, Pokemon Platinum, released on the 22nd of May 2009 on the DS. User score 8.9 out of 10. From the new characters to the addition of the Battle Frontier and an enhanced online experience, Pokemon Platinum certainly offered a lot of game for your money back in 2009. Instead of taking the easy way out and adding only a couple of minor things, Game Freak went out of its way to add a ton of worthwhile additions that were enough to warrant the purchase even if you'd previously travelled across the Sinnoh region in Diamond and Pearl when they released 2 years prior. If you're only going to play one Gen 4-5 game, this is the one. I got confused there. And number 1, the single best Pokemon mainline game ever made, was, of course, Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver, released on the 26th of March 2010 for the DS. User score 9.3 out of 10. The original Pokemon Gold and Silver games were fondly remembered by Pokemon fans all over the world, and with good reason. They introduced features that generally involved the Game Boy original games, such as breeding and an in-game clock, not to mention the colour. Features that have become series staples today. Add in-game favourite mons, and these remakes were always going to be well received. Future games would trickle in additional quality of life features and other innovations, but some would argue it never got better than travelling across the land searching far and wide in these DS remakes. The Game Boy originals may be a little hard to return to these days, but Pokemon Heart Gold and Soul Silver strike the very best balance of nostalgia and that patented catch-em-all gameplay. Okay, so that's it for today. So if you enjoyed it, punch the like button, comment down below, of course, subscribe to the news channel for my Twitter and Instagram links down below. As always, of course, I'll put my TubeBuddy first in the description for YouTube needs, tag titles, thumbnails, all that good stuff. So that's something you need help with, especially like I did. First in the description, download it today. Trust me, you'll wonder how you ever got on with it. And of course, our partner channels, and they hit down below, hit that join button to put myself and the channel, and of course get a huge range of benefits. But greatly appreciated. But of course, you never have to. But if you don't, you have to subscribe and watch the next video, or something might follow you home. You never know, stuff happens. Okay, thank you very much. I'll see you all again very soon.